Hey, so remember that trip I took to California? Well, I was keeping a little secret. I got to be a guest on the Dr. Phil show. It was a special episode about medical gaslighting. I was one of several guests who were on the show, and I was not there as Jen the YouTuber. I was just there as Jen the patient. But my YouTube channel is how Dr. Phil found me, and that's why I was invited onto the show. The show is airing tomorrow, so as of now I have not seen it, but if you are watching this video, that means it's out. If I have a link, I'll post it below. In this video, I want to tell you a little bit more about medical gaslighting and give you some of my personal gaslighting example, because if I remember correctly, which I usually don't because I don't remember almost anything, I don't think any serious examples of me being gaslit actually ended up being talked about on the show. And the second half of this video is going to be Q&A about the show and traveling to the show. Earlier this week, I told my Instagram that I was on the Dr. Phil show, and I asked them to submit questions. So these questions are from Instagram. Thank you to everybody who submitted some. Feel free, of course, to drop more questions in the comments below. And a huge thank you to my patrons who encouraged me to go on the show back when I got invited. I was very hesitant. I was very nervous about doing all of the travel and stuff, but I'm really glad that they encouraged me to go. I will definitely post more about what it was like to travel with 2 babies and a service dog, and me intermittently becoming Migraine Jen, so make sure you're subscribed and hit that notification bell. Turning on your notifications will let you know every time a video gets posted. Usually it's on Fridays, but clearly not always. Happy Wednesday. We like being honest here. I did already get a migraine alert from my service dog, so over this whole video I'm probably going to be making a steady decline cognitively. You may have already noticed that if you're a follower and you can recognize the signs of Migraine Jen. But if I have weird symptoms come up, I'm just going to leave that so you can see it and see what it's like living with this condition. Since I got that alert, I came prepared to film. I got my laptop, got some notes. Let's talk quickly about medical gaslighting. What exactly is medical gaslighting? Medical gaslighting is a term used to describe doctors who wrongly deny a patient's illness entirely. For example, telling patients that they're not really sick. My computer just crashed. Or it's when the doctor blames your physical illness on something psychological. For example, when I developed POTS, which is sort of known for the racing heartbeat, and it's a lot of other things, but racing heartbeat, I was first told that it was anxiety and that I needed to stop Googling my symptoms. Later, a doctor who listened and cared told me that I actually have a thing. That is an example of gaslighting, medical gaslighting. And that's what the Dr. Phil show was about. Dr. Phil is bringing awareness to the issue of medical gaslighting. Now, let's be clear, guys. Sometimes the doctor is right. Sometimes it is just anxiety and the person is working themselves up and they're getting panic attacks. That's totally fair. The doctor has a very difficult job to do. But if the doctor is getting it wrong and their patient keeps telling them that they need more tests and something still doesn't feel right, then at that point it becomes a problem and it can have dire consequences. For example, a delayed cancer diagnosis can have a huge impact on somebody's life expectancy. The condition I have, high cranial pressure, if unmanaged, could have led to vision damage. And I have a couple other examples of times that I was medically gaslit. I'm going to share some times I feel like were medical gaslighting for me, and please share yours in the comments below as well. So first, 2019 is when I developed POTS, and I was like fainting all over the place. And so I told my primary care doctor, like, can you refer me to a specialist because I keep fainting. My heart's racing and I'm fainting, maybe cardiology. It got sent, but it literally took months for the referral to go through. When I was telling her I need the referral sent, she was saying that she was going to send it, but then she was just not sending it. And this example is very subtle because even though this doctor wasn't telling me, hey, your symptoms don't matter, her action of taking literally months to put in a referral showed me that my symptoms didn't matter. I told her that I couldn't stand up for long enough to go into the grocery store for one item and then leave again, but I was still having trouble getting her to put in a referral for me. That's not how patients should be treated. I shouldn't have to beg and plead for my doctor to listen to me. I did finally get that referral. I went to cardiology, and the cardiologist told me that I just have anxiety. It's panic attacks. It's all panic attacks. I'm like, don't you need to feel worried in order to have a panic attack? This is just my heart beating really fast. This is not panic. Didn't matter to this doctor. They did a heart echo to make sure that I didn't have something that does genetically run in my family, but once that was normal, they told me I was normal. I did get them to order me a tilt table test, but when he got the tilt table test back, he didn't look at the data. He just told me I was normal. When I asked for specifics about the data and he didn't know, I was like, wait a minute, you didn't even look? Dude, he hadn't even looked. So I got him to open up the data, and it turned out when I stood up on my tilt table test, my blood pressure dropped too much. So he Googled it in front of me and found out that I have orthostatic hypotension. So he told me I was normal, that I shouldn't be Googling my symptoms, but then he Googled the data that he said was normal that he actually hadn't looked at, and then gave me a diagnosis. Duck Doctor. We call him Duck Doctor because his mask was like this. I went to him because he's an ENT guy, and I was asking him about the leakage out of my nose to see about a CSF leak. But the second he walked in, before we even exchanged pleasantries, he said he knew that I didn't have a leak. That was really frustrating because I feel like I waited a while for that appointment too. He was one of those ones I really had my hopes up for. That kind of sucked. And you guys know about Honey, the doctor who called me Honey. Honey, you do not have a CSF leak. She dropped an F-bomb. She said she didn't want to me up by doing tests on me, even the non-invasive ones though. She said that since my symptoms have been going on for so long and I haven't had meningitis yet, there is no way that I have a CSF leak. Unfortunately, her deciding that didn't lead to her suggesting anything else that it could be, despite me begging. Eventually she did say I probably just have positional allergies, and so now we joke about that a lot on my channel. Every time I do that's my positional allergies. It's definitely not anything wrong, and by the way, it's definitely not seasonal. I have never had allergies in my life. The problem is doctor after doctor after doctor isn't taking this drainage seriously. And all of these doctors are putting in my chart notes that I'm crazy and that there's nothing wrong with me and that I'm coming in with diagnoses that I think I have. And it gives them a misconception of me. I really think it does. I think that they are trusting that the previous doctors did some thorough looking before they put anything in my notes, but the other doctors didn't. They just put stuff in my notes. And you know what's weird about the notes is one time I actually got a doctor to order testing by telling her to put in my notes that she was refusing to do that testing. Then suddenly she was willing. Like, it's just super weird. And it's very sad that patients need to advocate for themselves so much, and patients need to be versed in how to go to doctor's appointments. This isn't something that we should need to prepare for. The doctors should be there prepared to listen. The doctors are experts in a broad sense, but the patient is the expert on themselves. I had another doctor who told me that she would order an MRI if I went to psychology and psychiatry. I mean, how do you think that made me feel? I think a lot of doctors see how productive I am and how much I'm able to make things work despite all of my symptoms, and it makes them think that maybe things aren't as severe for me as they are. That's just a guess. But I'm able to live a pretty normal life because I'm such a resilient person. The thing is, I just wish I didn't need to be so resilient in this way. I've lost a lot of life having symptoms for way longer than I needed to because I felt so defeated after doctor appointments that I had to take time to grieve after they ended. Then once I felt like I could make an appointment again, it's another couple of month wait to get into that specialist, and then it's heartbreaking again if you get into there and then the same thing happens over and over and over. And for so many of us in the chronic illness community, it's been literally years of the same thing on repeat, until eventually you yourself start to feel absolutely crazy. And then you're like, wow, maybe they're right. Maybe I am making it up. Maybe it is in my head. And then the self-destructive cycle of, how could you be like this? How could you conjure all of this up and be so crazy? It's horrible. And then they send you to psychology. I don't want the happy pills. I just want to know why I'm having these horrible symptoms. Now, I know I said that the second half of this was going to be Q&A, but I feel like that was epic. I feel like we stop it here. I get this posted, and then I quickly do the Q&A and have that post maybe next week. Why don't you guys go ahead and chime in? If you have questions about my time on Dr. Phil, put them in the comments below, and make sure you're subscribed so that we can get to that Q&A. I'm really sorry to cancel that on you. I am starting to feel really sick, and I already know that I need to edit this before I can post it, and I want it to post tomorrow when Dr. Phil does, so this is me giving myself grace and calling in sick on the second half of this video, but I'm excited. Subscribe. Turn on your notifications. I already have the questions and my notes on the answers written out here, so it's going to be really quick to get up for you guys next week. Can you see it in my face? I'm like red AF. I was freezing right before filming, and then I got way too hot, but when I take this off, I'm way too cold. When that happens, I tense up and I just get really stiff, and then I'll tremor. It's just really ugly. So at this point, I can't really take the sweater off until I'm laying down and I'm in a safe place. I'm very sick. But I am finally being evaluated for a CSF leak. Catch up on my most recent videos if you haven't already. That's a perfect thing to do since I'm flaking on the Q&A now. Go learn about my CSF leak. I'm super excited. My potential CSF leak. I might have been right, but I'm at least right enough that I wasn't crazy to think that I have something underlying all of these symptoms. Love you guys. Can't wait to hear from you in the comments. Bye. Oh, and I hope I didn't say anything stupid on Dr. Phil. On like 2 hours of sleep and starving. We'll find out tomorrow. Well, you'll find out today. I hope you learn a lot on that Dr. Phil episode. I think it's going to be really good because it's not only stories like mine of people who were gaslit and then you get to hear what their real diagnosis was. But at the end of the episode, Dr. Phil went over some patient tips. So if you're a patient who's going through gaslighting right now or who needs to be evaluated for something, this episode could be a really good resource for you. Share it with your chronic illness community or with anybody else who you feel needs encouragement. And there are also a lot of really awesome other ladies who were on the show with me. Many of them are patient advocates with accounts of their own. So you should check them out too and go follow them because if you enjoy my content, you may also enjoy theirs. Okay, bye for real this time.